We've all done it. We've all at some point or another bought something on eBay we didn't mean to. So today, I have to ask the question. What's in the box? My name is Jess P. This is my tech department. Los geht's.
Oh, it's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Now, it won't have escaped your attention that we are sponsored by PCBWay, but what makes PCBWay so special? Well, let's take a look. For example, the replacement ROM PCB for this Atari 800XL, well, I got it made by PCBWay. But PCBWay do, well, way more than PCBs. For example, when it comes time to remake this panel for a project that's coming up later this year, well, I'll be looking at PCBWay to do the milling. In fact, if you've got a project on the go, chances are PCBWay can help you out. From 3D printing to CNCing to full fabrication. PCBWay, way more than just PCBs. For more information, check out the link in the description below. Yes, we've all done it, and I know we've all done it because you're only human the same as me. You've come home, it's late at night, maybe you've had a drink, maybe you're just tired. Maybe it's all those things, and you've popped onto eBay before bed and gone, oh, I'll have a little search. Something catches your eye, something for a cheap price that you're not too worried about, and maybe you put in a little bid just to help things along. I mean, who knows, you might win it, but you're not too bothered if you don't, and if not, at least you're helping it sell. Well, that's what happened to me. You see, I came across something Atari ST related, and I thought, oh, it's quite cheap. It was £20, about 25 euros. And I popped in a bid. I figured, I could use it for spare parts, because that's what it looked like. And, well, I didn't think much else about it. I figured it would go for way more money than I'd put in, around £30. That was all I was prepared to pay for this. But I figured, what the hell. And, yeah, I promptly forgot about it, to be honest with you, until I got a notification letting me know I'd won. Yes, for £29.99, this big box of mystery is now mine. So why don't we unpack it and see exactly what it is I bought? Because, well, it's been a while and I can't quite remember. So come on, let's take a look inside. All right, so let's get it down on the floor and I'll start unpacking bits. Now, as I said, it was something Atari ST related. So I was kind of surprised when I got this. It is a Mega 1 case. Didn't really buy a Mega 1 case or indeed anything for Mega 1. And it's most of a Mega 1 case. We have the top, we have a house for the hard drive, and we have a pretty mangled main board holder there. We'll keep it, but honestly, not what I was expecting, so that's cool, I guess. And then you start to peel back the reason this machine got bought, I should say. This. It's pink. Not only is it pink, it's very pink. And, well, if you've watched this channel enough, you will know one thing. I do not wear a lot of colour. Black is my go-to colour. I am, in fact, goth. The purple, the green, the Beetlejuice probably tells you everything you need to know about that. But pink is definitely not my colour. However, it is my wife's colour. Now, she is very much the opposite of me, and, well, I kind of saw this and thought of her, despite the fact she doesn't use computers, or indeed know what an Atari ST is. Again, I've probably been drinking and was tired and thought this would be a nice idea. Nonetheless, what we do have is a complete case that's not broken. The top, oh, no, wait, it is broken, so a little bit of glue required there. And we have this main board. Already, I can tell you there's a number of things missing. For a start, we're missing the ROMs. We have 2 ROMs missing there, so that's unfortunate. The DMA controller is gone. But What's interesting is that everything is soldered to this PCB. Now, I've got a few Atari STs in the tech department, and they all are different. I've never seen so many different revisions of motherboards for the same machine. Now, I think this is a 1040. It may be a 520, but do we have a shifter chip? No, shifter chip's gone as well. So the first job I have to do is work out, does it actually work? Now, fortunately, I have a spares board that we can borrow a few bits from. But until then, let's take it out and have a look at what we've actually got and discuss that case, shall we? Okay, so we can see this is one of the later boards. It's either a 1040 STf or a 520 STf. There's no modulator in here, so we're going to have to find the cable here to make sure we can get a picture. As mentioned, we are missing the ROMs. Interestingly, we only have 8 bits of RAM, which either add up to 1 megabyte or 512 kilobyte. I'm going to guess 1 megabyte. Don't ask what I'm basing that on. Don't know. We do have, as I say, the DMA controller is missing. Now, interestingly, both the glue and the memory management unit are soldered onto the board with this one, so I kind of feel like this might be a later revision board. On top of that, the ROMs, sometimes they're in 6s, these are only in 2, so that's kind of interesting in itself. And like I said, the shifter chip is missing, so that's a shame. We're also down a power supply, we're also down a disk drive, and a keyboard. And for some reason, the back of this Atari computer, well, that is not pink, which is great, but then I don't know. But let's see if we can borrow some parts, or let's get our salvage board rather, and see if we can get some parts to power this machine up. Now, our donor board is unfortunately not quite working. Generally, it's in good condition, but I did do a 4 megabyte upgrade to it, and no matter what I do, it just doesn't work. I've checked the chips. I suspect there's a fault with the memory management unit, but from what I can gather from the shared project from PCBWay, everything should work, but it doesn't. And therefore, I thought this would be a suitable machine to use, at least to try and get this board running. So I have at least another 1040 in the tech department that's actually working. Immediately, I see a problem. Come here, let me show you. These are our ROM chips, and unfortunately, these are 6 ROMs. Now, I could put sockets in on the board over there, and we can use the ROMs there, but I would prefer not to be able to do that. I would rather have just the 2 ROMs that came with it. So I now have to work out if I have some that we can test, because, well, we'll see, but it could be awkward trying to clear those holes. The next problem is, well, the DMA controller was not soldered on this board. It had a socket, but I think on this board, it's probably in a socket. Let's take a look. Or not in a socket. In fact, the only chip that's in a socket here looks to be the Yamaha one. Oh, wait. Maybe it's this one? Maybe it's not. I don't know. Again, the problem with these machines is they're all very, very, very different. So I have to check, and I don't think it's going to be that. I get the feeling it'll be this one here. So finding parts has now become a little more difficult. Maybe. Let's check and compare between the boards what's what, shall we? Okay, so let's take a little look at the boards together. So we have 2 Motorola chips here that seem to match 2 Motorola chips there. That is indeed the Yamaha chip. That's a Yamaha chip there. Whatever this is corresponds to whatever that is. And our DMA controller is indeed this chip here. So we need to desolder that. Shifter chip wise, there's one in there, I know. So it's just that and the ROMs now to sort out. And maybe we have a working board, or at least something that will display. Well, we'll see, I guess. Let's get that DMA chip out, shall we? As ever, I'm using my usual desoldering gun to do this, and adding some extra solder to the chip legs, of course, to help lubricate things up. These chips have been in there a long time. Then the desolder gun comes out, and I use that, and then finally I use some hot air just to make sure that it comes off from the top side without damaging any traces. All in all, this takes about 10 minutes. Fortunately, I sped it up. We don't want to sit through watching me do this for 10 minutes. So let's turn our attention to our new board in the Barbie one. That's what my wife's taking the course. So I've taken out the shifter, so we'll pop that in there now. So let's see, that should just be a drop-in replacement. Yep, good. All right. Our DMA controller here. All right, let's have a look. Where is pin 1? It looks like pin 1 is right there. And where's it on our chip? There we go. Good. Let's just double check I don't need to straighten any pins. It's actually looking pretty good. A few here and there maybe. But generally they look straight. So hopefully this will... What I'm going to do actually, let's get some contact spray and just pop this in here. Apart from cleaning it, it'll also provide a little bit of lubrication, so this should drop in a bit easier. There we go, one DMA controller. Right, ROMs. Now, I've had a look through my parts bin and I have some sockets, but they are 28 pin. They're 2 pins or 4 pins too big, so I could clear these holes and then pop these in and we can test it that way, which is not ideal, but also I'd have to get these capacitors in there as well, which again is not ideal. So I think I'm going to order some ROMs and we'll go from there. However, maybe we can try a little power up and see if we get, well, anything. And I mean anything. So let's hold a sec, yeah? All right, yes, so I've got a power supply plugged in. We've got our shifter in, we've got our DMA controller. We don't have ROMs, but that's okay because I think we'll get a picture. So let's see. If I switch this on. Good, it's actually showing picture. Oh, okay, hang on a second then. Yeah, so there we go. We have a white screen. I guess that bodes well. God, I hate this power supply, but let's have a look. Yeah, that kind of bodes well, I guess. I mean, it's power. That's good. Now at this point my microphone went rogue, but it's okay because what I'd actually done was find some ROMs from another machine and took to testing them. And after a while, well, things got a bit better. Well, since we have a working system, I'm just going to give the board a quick clean and then pop it back in its case. And yeah, let's see if we can find the disk drive to go with it and see what we've got. Who knows, this could just be a working machine. Okay, so it is the next day, and I'm going to show you what the machine is doing. Now, it looked, for all intents and purposes, we had a working machine. So let's power it on. Now we have a white screen. Disk is ticking, but if I put a disk in, well, it goes straight to toss. And using my little dodgy mouse here, that's going to need a little work. If I go to disk station A and double click, come on. There we go. Well, you can see it opens up and says 0 bytes in 0.in. So it's not seeing the disk. Now, I have checked the drive and this disk in my other 1040 ST and it loaded. It's fine. So it means that there is still a fault on this board. And I suspect that since our DMA chip was out, someone thought that was the fault. But we already know that's not the case because we've changed that chip. We've put a fresh chip in, problem persists. So the second chip is the 1772 chip, which according to the service manual, and I'll put that up on screen now, if you're having disk problems, DMA controller 1772, or I think it was called the PSG chip or something like that. My guess is the 1772. So what I'm going to do, we're going to swap that off this board and take the one from the old board there and see if it makes a difference. So come on. All right, just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. So here's our DMA chip that we changed, and this is the 1772. Now I think it's like the disk controller, something like that. Unfortunately, it's not socketed. It is on the other board, which is helpful, but so we're gonna have to take this out, unfortunately, with the desoldering gun. So stand by for another, well, you know what's gonna happen. So let's do a time lapse. So it turns out desoldering didn't go terribly well, and I needed a lot of hot air then to release the chip. Afterwards then it was just a case of clearing up the holes with some desolder braid and installing a new socket. All in all, it went fairly well. Alright, so the machine is more or less back together, keyboard's plugged in. Let's see if we've got a change. We've got our new 1772 in there. Let's switch them on. Alright, we've got a white screen. Let's put the disc in. Yeah, straight to gem again. So look, nice bit of interference this time. It's not very shielded at the moment, so. We click and, come on. Yeah, 0 bytes in 0.tn. Yeah, so it wasn't a 1772, so I need to look back at the schematics and see what the next protocol is. I feel like this is going to get fun. Alright, so actually I had forgotten I have Atari ST Field Service Diagnostics revision 4.4. I hadn't forgotten particularly, I just thought I'd accidentally erased it because the last couple of machines I've tried this on, it's not worked, but apparently it's working today. So let's have a look and see what we've got. Let's see, can we run all tests? Yes, so look, the Q, run all tests. So Q. So let's see what we get. So we're testing the RAM first. Be nice to know actually if we have our full complement of 1 meg here. Get the feeling we're gonna have to speed this up, so you know. Well, I think that was good. MIDI would fail because we don't have MIDI plugged in. Well, a couple of things failed there, didn't they? I don't think it's going to do any more. Now, one of the things that did fail was that, by the looks of it, our drive failed. Cannot write drive A. Okay. So what else we got going on? A D0 DMA timeout. Fail at cycle 001. Okay, well, let's reset and... Okay, right, so let's go straight to our floppy, shall we? So F. Let's try a quick test. 1. Now for the blank disk in there. Floppy disk driver there. Okay, so that didn't go well. How about a read alignment test? Disk A, please. I find this weird how it always looks for disk A and disk B. Well, now see, that seems to be doing something. I mean, it's ticking along. I'm assuming that's the head slowly moving up to track 40. We'll speed it up and we'll get to the end of the test. Well, I took some time. I rearranged it so we could just see the screen a bit better, and well, now it's just ticking and it sounds like it's hitting the end, so I have a feeling this test is probably stuck or failed. Alright, so let's have a look. So let's try floppy again. Let's try disk exerciser. See what that does. Exerciser. Hey, please. Drive not ready. Well, see, that's interesting. So let's take that out. And let's put that back in. So disk 4. Come on, 4 please. And that's going to be A. And yeah, floppy drive not ready, disk A, track C, size 0, track 0, track 1, track 2. I think we can guess how this is going to go. So we're missing the ready signal. See, this is useful. Tells us something. Right. I could try 7. Install this drive. Type 1 or S to test single-sided, 2 double-sided. Well, this should be a double-sided disk, I believe. Right. All choices except 2, 6, and 7 right to disk. Okay. Well, I mean, we'll run a quick test again. Nope. It's very quick. It's very done. So there's definitely a problem there. Let's go back one step. So let's look at DMA port. Now, hopefully that'll tell us something. DMA 0 timeout fail at cycle 000001. Right, let me consult the manual. Okay, so I have to have the manual for this. The service manual covers this very diagnostics. And it says DMA test error codes D0 DMA timed out. And it says the following. No DMA occurred due to faulty DMA controller. Well, again, we changed that. So although I can't be sure it wasn't faulty, pretty sure it was working. So faulty DMA controller, glue, or memory controller. Now, given we find our memory fine, and you know, I'm sure the glue is fine as well, I don't think that's an issue. So it says that all memory controller or the HDINT interrupt was not processed by the MFP. The failure can be isolated by seeing if the DMA controller responds to the HDRQ from the test fixture with ACK. Verify. I mean, I could continue, but that does not help. But it tells us something is definitely wrong here. So according to the manual as well, looking at our floppy drive, so I've asked it to do the disk exerciser and we get FD drive not ready disk A. According to this, FD drive not ready, the format stroke read stroke write operation timed out. Probably a bad disk drive. Verify by checking another drive. Could also be a faulty 1772. Well, again, I've just changed out the 1772 from our board, so I'm kind of dubious since we have exactly the same problem. So I don't think that's the issue. The disk drive, well, I tested that on another machine and it booted fine. I do have another disk drive we can plug in and check, but I don't know if it's going to make a difference. So give me a minute. All right, I've got a fresh floppy drive, so I'm going to pop the floppy in, nice blank one. We're going to go to F, enter. 4, enter, A, oh, I did something wrong, F, enter, 4, that's my fault, I did the wrong thing. Here we go. Yep, same fault, drive. And so it continued, test after test, hour after hour. I worked multiple permutations to get this to work and came up blank. Okay people, I've been futzing around with this for a little while now, and yeah, I've come to the conclusion, I've done many tests. The drive that I've been using is good. In fact, I tested it on my other Atari and that is fine. It runs fine, it formats fine, it's a very good drive. I exchanged on the other working Atari the DMA chip. Again, that works fine. It still gives that same, either one gives the same DMA error on there, but I'm not worried about that because I don't think it's really related. What I have done though is basically pinned out everything that I can from this connector J10 to see that we have continuity. And what I've discovered is a lot of the signals will go through this logic gate here, this 7406. So that is my next suspect. So why don't we whip that out and see if it makes any difference. Perhaps we can test it with the machine and it should pass or fail. Alright then people, so after much futzing around, I swapped over the LS4706 chip. Now, when I did run it through the reader, it came back as faulty, but I'm not 100% certain that was the right chip for various reasons. Nonetheless, I took the one off the other board. Let's see if we can at least find the floppy at this point. So, give me a quick test, please. Checking. I don't think that has solved our problems. No floppy, so no. Once again, we have failed. And now the question is, what's next? I don't have an answer. Okay, like that, so assuming I've given a good write-up of where we are right now, what we do know is this is okay, this is okay, this has been replaced and is now okay, but our disk drive still continues to fail, which is a problem. So where do we go next? If it's none of these and we know the disk drive is also okay, well, then we have to shake it down a bit. Now, what happens next is that we can go to this, the 68901, which is the MFP or multifunctional peripherals or multi-peripheral function, whatever. Yep, basically this acts as a sort of interpreter between the CPU and the floppy drive and parallel port and other things as well. Now, as we get closer to this, we do have this logic chip, which is an LS74LS02, which may be faulty because that sends certain signals to the 1772 to tell our drive to do something. So given that we've tested all these and confirmed everything is pretty much okay with those chips, let's take this out and hope that's the problem, because if it's this, well that's going to be a lot of soldering. So for now, let's test this as an easy option and we'll see how we get on. I'm not going to bore you with desoldering it. At this point, you've seen me desolder many chips on this board. So let's just crack on and get that into a tester and see if it's faulty. And at this point, I'm calling a halt to this video. Honestly, I am well and truly stumped here. So let's recap to where we are and see where we can go next. So we have a £30 Atari STf board that in all other ways seems to work perfectly fine. Diagnostics reports that everything on the board works perfectly except for the floppy drive. Now, I have checked the floppy drive and discovered that on other machines it works perfectly well, it reads disks perfectly, it's in good condition. I have changed the WD1772 floppy drive controller, which is known to cause faults, but that has also been found to be good when used in other machines, and swapped between a machine that was known to be working, we still have a floppy drive problem. There was no DMA controller provided with this board, but I put a brand new controller in there that I know was working and have tested in another machine, and again, the problem persists. We did find one faulty logic IC, which I changed for a known good one, and yet the problem still persists. So at this point, I'm kind of tearing my hair out, because as far as I've learned and researched in the process of looking at this board, that's the main area where these problems come up. It's got to be related to any of these chips, but they all work perfectly. The drive works perfectly, but for some reason, not in this board. Now, as far as I can see, the next place I could possibly take this would be the 68901 controller, the big 40 plus pin controller further down the board. Now, I'm kind of reticent to remove this because none of the boards I have this socketed, so it's going to be a big job to take it out of this board and take the spares one out as well. And plus, everything else on this board seems to be working fine, and this controller controls a lot of that. So it seems odd to me that just the floppy drive part of it could be a problem. However, if you guys have an idea, let me know. If I need to take out that chip and test it, let me know, because I'm turning it over to you. What am I missing? What am I not seeing? And where should I go next? I really would appreciate any advice you guys have out there. All that's left to say now is thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, please consider giving it a like. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing, where I do more of this nonsense. And if you feel like helping out a little bit more, well, I do have a Ko-fi page where you can buy me a one-off coffee, which in a city that's run on caffeine, it's greatly appreciated. All that's left to say now, though, is thank you so much for watching. And yeah, when it comes to old computers, remember to reuse, rediscover, and be careful, because sometimes things are cheap for a reason, and you might find your own Atari STf board that's going to cause you to tear your hair out. My name is Jess B. This has been my tech department. Cheers.